Welcome to Stephen King Saturdays. We're continuing on with this, and it is time to talk about Apt Pupil. As you can see in the reflection here, I got a ring light. I got a new fancy ring light, 18-inch newer ring light, and I quite like it. I think I put the like oranges filter on it, and I think it does good for my skin. The white one feels like it like washes me out, but this one, so even. I love it. Anyway, why don't I find my notes? Shall I? Mortal Kombat? Nope. Mortal Kombat Annihilation? Nope. Friday 3? Nope. Storm of the Century? Oh shit. I hope it's in this book. I think it is. Uh-oh. Apt Pupil. Here it is. I found him. All right. So, I feel like this is an extremely overlooked Stephen King film. I'm not sure really why, but there seems to be a lot of people who are just not like huge on it. And I don't really get it. I think it's a really cool concept. I think it's really well acted. I think it's really well directed. I think it's a really well-rounded film. You know, I mean, maybe there's some shortcomings here and there. I don't know, but I can't really think of many. So I don't really see the problem with this film. But yeah, I mean, this thing doesn't have a Blu-ray. This thing barely has a DVD. I mean, I had to order this off eBay or something because I don't even think they sell an Apt Pupil copy on DVD unless it's in like a 6-pack or something, like with Stephen King movies. So it's an interesting one because it's, you know, it's got Ian McKellen. It's directed by Bryan Singer. I'm not sure why this one's overlooked as much as it is, but I think it's great. And I was really excited to rewatch it. Now, Brad Renfro died when he was 25 years old from a heroin overdose, which is a shame, but he's great in this. And he's only 14 years old in this movie, which is pretty wild to me. I think he's supposed to be playing. I mean, he graduates high school in this, but I think they say he's 16 somewhere in the film, but he's really smart, so that's why he is graduating early. Although his grades do slip, but only for a semester. So I think he's supposed to be 16. But anyways, all right. So when you learn about the Holocaust as a kid or a teenager or whenever the fuck you really learn about it kind of changes your perspective on everything, right? Like, before that, you think, there's bad people out there. There's terrible things that have happened to a degree. You don't really have a good understanding of how awful things can be until the Holocaust is thrown on you. And then you're like, what is this? What is this atrocity? Not that there isn't other horrible atrocities that have happened in the world, but that's like, I don't know. That's like the one you hear about that the first one you hear about that you're just like, fuck, what is wrong with people? Like, what is wrong with humans? Like, how could anyone do that to another person or millions and millions of people? It's unfathomable. It's like beyond your comprehension, right? So I think learning about that stuff is good. I mean, obviously those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it, but I think it can be extremely traumatic, and Brad Renfro's character in this is clearly like near sociopathic. He's becomes obsessed with this idea. Now, is it convenient that he happens to find a guy who's in town and this and that? Sure, it's convenient, but crazy people meet each other. Like, crazy coincidences happen. Like, that German story, that famous true German story where the dude found the other dude in a cannibal website where one dude wanted to eat someone and the other dude wanted to be eaten. I mean, what are the odds that these two people are going to find each other? You know, yeah, it's a cannibal website and this and that, but how many people want to be eaten? I guess if they do, they want to go to a cannibal website to be, eaten. But I don't know. People just happen to cross each other. So, yes, it's convenient, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that a kid who is smart enough to notice someone like that and would be crazy enough to do this might meet. That's just storytelling 101. Like, don't worry about coincidences. That's not for us to really focus on. I was thinking about it when I was watching the film. I'm like, it's a little convenient. This guy just happens to live like right up the street from him, and he's really into the Holocaust. I mean, there's billions of people in the world, but plot convenience is fine as long as it's not egregious. And for the purposes of the film, you wouldn't have a film without it. So to me, it's fine. And Ian McKellen's only in his 50s in this movie, and he's supposed to be playing 75. And I read that he was surprised when he was thought of for the role, because he's like, I'm in my 50s. Like, this dude's old. You know, he's like 75. It's funny because of this movie. It almost has that Exorcist effect. You know how the Max von Sydow, he couldn't get work for a while after he did The Exorcist because the makeup was so good on him that everyone in Hollywood thought he was an old man. So when he was getting, when his agent would come to studios and be like, hey, I got this guy, and they'd be like, the dude from The Exorcist is like 70, and they'd be like, no, he's not. He's like late 30s or early 40s or something. And they're like, what? Like, I feel like that's what happened with me and Ian McKellen, because I saw this movie and I saw X-Men, which obviously Bryan Singer did as well, and he looks old as fuck in both. And I feel like he looks exactly the same now as he did then, and these movies are 20 some odd years old at this point, which is really interesting. He's like Richard Gere or Steve Martin, those guys that just look old always. They have like gray hair, and they just always look the same for years and years and years and years. So, interesting. We got Joshua Jackson, Pacey himself, what's his name in Mighty Ducks? Why is that escaping my... it'll come to me. And yeah, so I found some really interesting stuff in the trivia for this movie. There was an attempt to make this movie in 1987. Charlie, that's what his name is in Mighty Ducks. Charlie. Anyway, but there's an unfinished version of this in 1987, and there was only 10 days left of shooting before they ran out of money, and they never, it never saw the light of day. They never finished it. So there's a almost completely different version of this movie from 1987 out there that never saw the light of day. That's crazy to me. They only had 10 days left. Now, of how many days? Was it an 11-day shoot? They didn't shoot much. Was it a 30-day shoot and they shot 2/3 of it? Like, how much of this film was shot? That's wild, man. They just pulled the plug on it and we're like, well, we shot 90% of the movie, so oh well, too bad. Wow. And then they also tried to make it again. I think this was before that, but the lead person that they hired had a heart attack and died before they could get it up and going. So this film, this film kind of was plagued with some issues. I found that to be quite interesting. We've got the X-Men connection here between Bryan Singer and Ian McKellen, but we also got Bruce Davison as well. So, a few X-Men alums in here. And then, of course, I mean, the elephant in the room with Bryan Singer thing is almost like the Victor Salva thing with the Jeepers Creepers. You know, he had some sexual allegations from boys on the set of this movie, ages ranging from 14 to 17, during the shower sequences where people were like, or Bryan Singer, I guess, was like forcing them to get naked. I don't know what the details are beyond that. I don't know if it's way more incriminating than that. I mean, that information right there alone isn't enough for me, but I'm sure there's plenty of other information out there that would make him, look terrible. I don't know what it is, because that's like a hearsay kind of thing. That's like they came on set to do a certain scene, because in those scenes, this is a shower. This is a locker room shower. Like, kids are in there naked taking a shower. That's what you're fucking hired on to do. And these kids are uncomfortable. And it's like, dude, you made a decision to fucking come and do this. We need these shots. Get the fucking clothes off. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't creepy. I'm not saying that that's not, that's exactly what happened. I don't know. I'm just saying with the information that I'm given, that's not enough for me personally. I'd have to see more, but I'm sure plenty else exists, and I'll probably get a comment below of someone linking me or telling me why it's way worse than that, which is fine. And I'm sure it is, because so many people are hating on the guy and saying he's a predator and all this shit. I mean, that being said, people have made all sorts of wild claims about celebrities, and then I look into it and I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't seem like enough evidence for me to condemn them. That might not be the case here, but in the past, I've definitely had that happen, where there's a consensus that someone's awful, and then I look into the things that make them awful, and I'm like, I'm not seeing enough here. We're not seeing enough here yet. Show it to me, So with this, I'm not sold yet. But I've never looked into it otherwise. I just heard about it. I just heard he was a creep. And I was like, oh, okay. What did he do? And I never looked into it. I thought it kind of funny that Bryan Singer and Ian McKellen worked on this, and they, in this, Ian McKellen is a Nazi, and then in X-Men, he's a little Jewish kid who hates and wants to kill Nazis. So I thought that was an interesting, difference there. This movie is a total box office dud, like big time. Like, it made way less than it cost to make. So that's another thing. Like, it's interesting. This film had no appeal to people, and it seems to still not. It's a bummer. So Renfro finds out that this guy is a Nazi, and he goes to his house and he blackmails him into sharing the stories of the Holocaust with him. He wants to know everything that's happened, and he wants to have power over this guy as well, because now I honestly can't get a read on Brad Renfro's character in this movie. I don't really know what's up with him. I don't know if he's losing his mind because he's hearing the stories. Because any kid that would want to hear these stories, I don't know though. It would be very interesting from someone who isn't, quote unquote normal. It would be very interesting to get first-hand account of the Holocaust. Now, that might not appeal to some people or most people. I don't know. But to actually sit down and listen to a high-ranking official in, the German fucking army, to listen to them recount these horrendous events and the details that you could never get from school, And that's what he says. Like, I want you to tell me our schools are too afraid to tell us or won't tell us or whatever he says. I think for a kid who sees something like that, I don't know. I could take it that he likes to have power over him, and that maybe learning about these events makes him feel like he understands these things better because it fucked him up so much, that listening to these stories, and he always intended to, well, maybe, I don't know. I also don't, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he always intended or if he never intended or what his intentions were on turning this guy in. Was he always going to turn him in? You know, I don't know. And so it's hard to get a read on it because, you know, there's so many people, women especially, that are obsessed with serial killer documentaries, serial killer books. And they want to read about these horrible, horrible things. But these are being relayed through a writer who's doing his research. But this is not the same as getting it straight from the source of the people who did it, who actually were there and are telling you exactly what happened. No lies, no filters. It's interesting, man. Like, you know, most people would just want to turn him in immediately, have him come to swift justice. But I don't know. Like, would I turn him in immediately? Sure, 100%. But it is fascinating. I mean, if like once he was arrested, they like put out a story, like they put out like a documentary where they were interviewing him and asking him to give all the details, there'd be a lot of people who would want to watch that. Definitely be a lot of people who would want to watch that. They'd condemn him the whole time and be like, oh my God, he's a monster. But they couldn't look away. They wouldn't stop listening. So he has this ability to kind of trap this guy into telling him stories that no one else has, that no one else is ever going to talk about. And he's kind of obsessed with it. So he has like a streamline right in to this information that is not manipulated, that is not sugar-coated, that is, you know, the unadulterated truth. So to me, it's hard to read because while he's hearing these stories, his grades start to plummet. He crushes this bird with a ball. He goes after his teacher and says he's, you know, going to tell everyone he molested him. But those scenes might paint him like he's some crazy person and that his intentions are all awful. And while I can definitely understand that opinion, and I'm probably going down that road, I also think it's possible and even likely that he is so disturbed and so troubled by the events of what he hears. He thinks he can handle them until he starts hearing them, and this is when he starts to lose it. He just can't handle it. And he's snapping. And his grades are slipping, and he's committing terrible acts, and he's treating his friends like shit, and he's losing it. Because he was a sociopath, crazy person before this, right? I mean, if he really is, why was he, you know, so good with his friends? And then when he gets shit back on track in school, and he's not hanging around, you know, this dude anymore. He's got a girlfriend. Him and his buddies are hanging out. He's, you know, he's succeeding. He's getting all A's. He's going, you know, he's a normal kid again. So I think there is an argument to be made that this kid isn't inherently bad, and that his curiosity gets the best of him, and the stories themselves pervert his mind and make him, you know, fucked up. So what do you think? What do you guys think? You think that, you know, which one of those do you think? I'm not going to go back over. I think I already went back over them twice, so we're good there. We got David Schwimmer in here. We've got Elias Cotilles, however you say that guy's name. Always love seeing him. And I love that contrast of like the old nice man that the family meets, and it's like kind of juxtaposed with him telling stories of the war and how all these horrible things they did to these people. It's beyond comprehension. The shit that he's talking about is like, oh my god, you're not even human. And I like when he asks him like, how did it make you feel? And like off camera, Ian McKellen's like just smiles. That's just like right there. There's no remorse. There's no like he still holds pride of what he did. There's still a sense of like love for this. He is an evil fucking son of a bitch. End of discussion. There's no redemption for this guy. You know, he was always awful, and he's always going to be awful. And then there's another person in this from the X-Men movies, and that is Jason Stryker, William Stryker's son, from X-Men 2. So he's in the shower scene. Maybe he's one of the kids that said the director, made inappropriate comments. I don't know. And then he makes him put on that uniform and gets him marching, and then this like brings back this like dormant side of him where he just kind of unleashes, and he can't even get him to stop, and it scares him. He's like, stop, stop. And he's like yelling at him, stop it. Like he doesn't like it. This is what I'm saying. A sociopath would have saw him freaking out like that and been like, yeah. Like, I'm glad it's bringing back these memories. I'm glad that you're fucking, like, in a trance. I'm glad, like, this is getting me. He's, like, doing the Zig Heil and shit. He's completely fucking gone. And he becomes obsessed with this. But, like, when he sees that, it scares him. He's genuinely afraid, from what I can see. And then when he's, like, trying to go on this date with this girl in the car, this just reminds me of how many people I've talked to in my life who there's just no ability to think beyond like very basic concepts. Like where everything is very surface, there's no deep thinking, and it's fucking frustrating. But a lot of the times, those people appear to be very happy. A lot of the time. Like, they're like total happy idiots. And it's kind of disheartening. It's really weird. But yeah, like, and she's like, she's trying to come on to him. She's trying to blow him. And then, of course, he's like too fucked up in the head to do anything about it. And then she's like, maybe you don't even like girls. Woo! Brutal, man. Brutal. But she's just, when he tries to talk to her about real things, and she just laughs and is like, essentially like, you think too much, or like you're weird. Oh, I've gotten enough of this in my life. Like when I start talking to people and I try to really ask some interesting, thought-provoking questions, people are like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're a weirdo. And I'm like, I'm a weirdo because I want to talk about something other than just like everyday random fucking like things that everyone talks about all the time. Really? That's what you want to do all the time? Doesn't sound very interesting to me. The scene with the cat in the oven. Whew, poor kitty. But he gets away. Yeah, I mean, he completely shuts down. He cannot function in school or in social situation. His grades slip. He's killing this bird. He's throwing his friends away. His girlfriend is gone. His dating, his potential girlfriend, let's say that. So then dude comes in and poses as his grandfather, which I'm not really sure why this poses that big of a problem, but he's just like, why are you fucking with my life? Get out of here. And this is where he totally flips the script on him. And it's like, you need to focus on your grades. You're going to leave me alone, this and that. And he just can't seem to, at first, get these voices out of his head. And then eventually kind of gets his shit back together and he goes back to his life and everything's great until he sees him. But at this point, he's already opened Pandora's box. Like, I feel like this dude was done. He was retired from all of that. He was just going to die. And, that was that. And then he runs into the bum who he brings home and he tries to murder. And Elias plays this very well, and it's very sad. And, he definitely undersells himself. Like, he's totally going to let this guy fuck him. And all he wants in return is a shower, a bed for the night, and $10. Dude, if I was going to let some 75-year-old Nazi fuck me, I would definitely want a lot more than that. But he's desperate, I guess. So then when he's trying to commit this murder, because as I said, this kid opens this door back up to him, being a terrible person, he starts to have a heart attack. And he calls the kid and he's like, you need to go over here right now. Like, this is our issue. I just, the yawning thing is really pissing me off, but I don't know how to record any earlier than I have been recording lately. Fuck, it's annoying. But yeah, so he kills the bum. He comes over and the guy's got it over him and he goes down and he locks him in the basement with him and he ends up having to kill this guy to stay alive. Although, I feel like he doesn't even try at all. He isn't like stop and try to talk to the guy. No. He just bashes him over in the head with a shovel, which would, kind of go to the point of he's a sociopath. But at the same time, I think he was just scared. So there's an argument that could be made either way. And then after that, he hides the body, and then Ian McKellen gets the Danker. That's the name he goes by, right? He gets a new heart, and he finds out that he has 20 more years to live. And then this dude who's sleeping next to him recognizes him. It's not even Brad Renfro that ever even turns him in. I think Brad was just going to let it go. He was done with it. He was moving on. At this point, he was too far in. He had a dead body in the basement. It was going to be found out to be his and this and that. And then, man, the dude's acting, the guy who sees him, is so fantastic. It really does feel like somebody who saw somebody from their past that committed such an atrocity, that seeing them would turn this, grown adult, this man, into a blathering, bubbling, fucking crying mess, which he is. And he's like scream crying on this nurse's shoulder and ever. And he sends in these authorities and, he wakes up and he's been fingerprinted and, there's some people there that are not going to do good things to him. And he has to give himself like I think it's an air embolism. Is that what they would call that? And he ends up dying, and then this is when the news is shown that he's this Nazi, and the parents find out about it and everything, and then Schwimmer comes over because he realizes he's been lied to, and this is where we get the whole, I'm going to tell him you fucking molested me and whatever. It shows that he's too far gone. At this point, I feel like what has happened to him, the other dude has kind of passed on his legacy to this kid, that he's going to kind of pervert this kid's identity. Now, whether or not he was a killer before or that he was fucked up before, I don't know. But I can tell you that at the end of this movie, he's a changed kid, and that he will continue to commit terrible acts. Like, he's going to use power and manipulation for his, social settings and work and all of that stuff. Like, I don't see anything good coming for this kid in the future. So whatever his intentions or whatever his mindset was before the events, I don't know. But at the end, I think it's very clear to me that he's, unreachable, that it's over for him, that he's fucked at this point. He's gone. He's nuts. He's all in. He's, gonna do whatever the hell he wants whenever he wants. It doesn't matter what the consequences to anybody are. So, and I think they all play that very well. When Danker realizes that he's caught and just frantically has to kill himself, and his acting when he's dying and all that stuff is great. And when Renfro's like freaking out and he's riding his bicycle and he crashes it and he's in school with his friends and he's just out there and wild. And for a 14-year-old, the performance is fantastic. And just the way he kind of like illustrates and conveys those things to the camera in the end of like him bouncing the ball and getting all tough with Schwimmer and whatnot. I think it's excellent. It's a very thought-provoking ending. So it's something that I definitely need to think a little bit more about. But man, it's a good one. It's a very good one. But unfortunately for Stephen King's work, it's I do find it interesting that this is the movie, or at least one of the movies, where Singer was accused of this child molestation thing. But then in this movie, it ends with a kid accusing a guy of child molestation. Almost like he threw it in last minute, like, a wink to what's going to happen, or which maybe it already happened. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know how the book ends. And then once he does that, like he's throwing the ball against the baseboard too hard, right? The backboard way too hard. But then once he talks shit to Schwimmer, once he tells him how it is, once he feels that power, and that's what I think he liked from Ian McKellen's character. I think he's getting this now. He's asserted himself. He's the dominant alpha in those situations, which I think he was lacking before. And at the end, once he tells Schwimmer off, and you can see he completely, obliterated him there, and that guy is pretty much fucked at that point. He goes over and he shoots a perfect swish through the rim. Like, his mind is clear, his body and his soul are, in sync, or whatever the hell they say in Big Trouble in Little China. My body and my soul were going north and south. That's why I couldn't cut the bottle. I'm tired. But yeah, man. I think I said everything. I thought it was interesting that he was still his valedictorian, though, even though he had like a full quarter where he was getting like C's and D's. But I guess he wiped those clean, right? So I guess it would make sense. And then I like how Danker comes to the kid and he's like, after he's killed the bum, he wants a reaccount from him on what it was like to kill the bum. I thought that was a really interesting flip. And there's multiple times where that happens in the movie, where Danker comes and he flips everything on its head and kind of starts emulating things that this kid was doing to him. So I think there's a lot of good back and forth with these guys in this story. And I think there's enough really cool twists and turns and a good ending that, I don't know why this one's so overlooked, but have you seen it? Have you just sat through this not having seen the movie? I know a lot of people haven't. So if you have, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the comments. Adios.